What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Julien Stoutt, licensed personal trainer, licensed PE teacher, world record powerlifter, here to take the fear out of fitness. Where have I been? Where did I go? Why wasn't I where I said I was? Last time I had some technical difficulties and I needed to get those hashed out. So unfortunately, I did not get to the dance. But your boy's back. He's ready to do his thing. We are about to take off, and class is in session. For those of y'all who don't know, I am also a special education teacher, and I am a elite level personal trainer. Okay? Over the years, if you have been watching this channel, you have seen me grow in terms of content. You have seen me grow in terms of my value to the contribution of this thing that we call fitness and health. However, today is different. You saw the title in the thumbnail. You see the picture in the thumbnail. It is of the queen of all media, as she has been described, Oprah Winfrey. And the cool part is, if you look at that picture, she kind of looks like Marseille Marai, right? Your little girl from Blackish. She looks like an older version of her in that particular picture. Don't come for me if you are offended. But I digress. Last time you saw me, I actually was talking about the use of drugs such as GLP-1s, such as Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, things of that nature, right? And GLP-1s is glucagon-like peptides, and its successes in recent times. And one of the things that we have to understand is it is the people who need it most is who needs it. Now, for somebody like Oprah Winfrey, who has been very public, or front and center, I wouldn't say public, no, I would say public, about her struggles with weight, she clearly looks about as healthy as she did back in 2004 when Jamie Foxx himself joked about Oprah looking her best. Not in a mean-spirited way. He was like, Oprah? Hey, Oprah. Oprah, you might want to come up off of Stedman. You know what I mean? And the awesome thing was, that was probably the happiest in our minds that we saw her, at least to my memory, because despite my issues with Miss Winfrey in certain realms of media and conflict, I will say that I regularly watched her television program, especially in 2008 through 2010. I was watching quite profusely for several reasons. But within that, I used to watch her when she first came on in 1986, because I used to come home. My mom was pregnant with my brother. Well, actually, she just had my brother. And she was home convalescing, and she would watch Oprah Winfrey. And if you grew up in a black home at any time, you are not changing your parents' television programs or your grandparents' televisions at all. Under no circumstance. They don't care if it's 4 o'clock and Transformers is on, or Power Rangers, or whatever was on at 4 o'clock at your generation. But Oprah Winfrey was the thing. And she was the thing for 25 plus years. And what I will say is there was a lot of compelling programming on there, and especially when it came down to weight. She did, unfortunately, unleash Dr. Oz upon us. And in my infancy of my ignorance, in this fitness industry and in this weight loss journey thing, I clung on to everything that he said in regards to how to take care of yourself and how to lose weight, and this is going to help, and this is going to be awesome if you use it, because as you well know, my wife struggles with obesity herself. And in this video, I'm not going to share my screen with you for this particular thing because of the importance of, let me see. The importance of not getting flagged. I'm not going to share my screen, but you can hear her. You're going to hear everything that she's going to say. And every now and then I'm going to pause it. And I'm going to break down some things that I know, share some things, some ideas that I have about what was said and what was shared, because Oprah Winfrey had a special on Monday. And I want people to understand and know why it is important to listen and understand what is being shared at this point in time, because it might change your perception about a lot of things. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to share the sound of this video. Please listen closely.
The shame that the world gave to me. For 25 years, making fun of my weight was national sport.
Emotional, shocking, revelatory.
This is it.
Oprah's return to primetime television tonight here on ABC.
You've received a lot of criticism for that, you and your family. What do you want to say about that?
I would say walk a mile in our shoes.
In front of a live audience and on a set, very much like the one she used for the Oprah Winfrey Show nearly 13 years ago, the legend sharing a story of her own.
I'll never forget a day in 1990. I saw myself on the cover of TV Guide's best and worst dressed list. And I remember thinking at first, oh, look, there I am on the cover. And then I read the headline that Mr. Blackwell, the tastemaker of the time, called me bumpy, lumpy, and downright dumpy.
Now, first of all, that is body shaming, because it's not like Oprah was wearing some exposing gown. If you want to, go ahead and go to ABC News and find the Oprah Gets Personal About Weight Struggles in Newtown Hall. And when you click on that video, you'll see this picture of Oprah in a black dress. It's a black sequence dress. And I have to say, she looked rather nice in it. But for somebody to go out of their way to shame her for wearing a very elegant dress is a form of body shaming. There's no equivocation on that. And because there's no equivocation on it, I will call it out. Mr. Blackwell, shame on you. I know you're long dead and gone already, but shame on you. Shame on you for doing that. You have no right to critique the way a person looks in a dress. You could critique the dress if it's inappropriate, if it's not stylish enough, if it doesn't suit her features per se, or if it doesn't suit how she looks per se. So for instance, certain skin tones don't mesh well with certain colors. You could go there because that's a fashion thing. And if she's dressed distastefully for the event, you could talk about that. But for you to go out of your way to talk about bumpy, lumpy, and downright dumpy, that's messed up. Regardless of how one might feel about Oprah Winfrey, she doesn't deserve that at all. And any woman who is any type of shape doesn't deserve to be talked about in that way. Okay? And I'm not happy about that. But I digress.
Bringing many others to light. Nothing held back during the full-hour TV event. Shame, blame, and the weight loss revolution.
I starved myself for nearly 5 months and then wheeled out that wagon of fat that the internet will never let me forget. And after losing 67 pounds on a liquid diet, the next day, y'all, the very next day, I started to gain it back.
So, Oprah, the famous Oprah wagon, she wheeled out a red wagon. She was wearing a black turtleneck with some blue jeans and silver buckles and all that stuff. If you remember the iconic vision of Oprah at that time, Oprah was skinny. Now we're finding out that she didn't lose this weight through, I wouldn't say a lack of hard work, because to go on a liquid diet for weeks, and just a pure liquid diet for weeks, is work. All right? So, what I will say is she went about it the wrong way. Now, in all fairness to her, this is the early 90s. This is not, excuse me, this is not the information that we have at our disposal now of how to properly lose weight, how to properly go about dieting correctly, how to go about training properly for the body type that we have. This is not it. Going on a liquid diet is so 80s, so 70s, right? And yes, Oprah was skinny, but Oprah did not look good. Okay? And yes, it sounds like I'm body shaming, but I'm not. What I'm saying is that for the body type Oprah has, for the facial structure Oprah has, Oprah did not look her absolute best at that weight of loss of 67 pounds. There's going to be a lot of revelations about what Oprah Winfrey was and what she went through and all this other stuff in this time frame. But I want you to understand something. A liquid diet is the absolute wrong way to go about losing weight correctly. All right. Now we're going to go into the GLP-1s and all of that stuff. That's all well and good too. We'll get into improper and proper use of it, at least in my opinion, from a personal trainer, fitness and health standpoint, from a medical standpoint as well. But I am going to be 100% candid and fair about what it is that I'm discussing.
Mix of medical experts and personal stories ushering in a conversation about the rapid rise in the use of prescription medications for weight loss.
We're seeing double the amount of weight loss you can achieve with this class of medications compared to what we've had in our toolbox for the last several decades, in combination, of course, with a healthy lifestyle.
Highlighting how these drugs are changing lives around the country.
In 7th grade or 6th grade, when I got made fun of, I was like, I mean, maybe I am different.
So, again, proper lifestyle, which is one of the things that I've always stressed on one of the successes of weight loss, right? And when we achieve that success in weight loss, there's only one way to do it. There's only one way, and that is proper caloric restriction that allows a certain amount of weight loss while satisfying your appetite at that time. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to share something with you in a minute, but also there's a young lady who's sitting here who clearly lost some weight, and I'm going to give a mild description of her. She looks rather tall, at least for a woman, or girl. Actually, she's a girl. She looks tall for a girl, And she also looks like she has lost some weight over a period of time. But let's continue.
16-year-old Maggie Irvy from Marceline, Missouri, opening up about struggling with her weight since childhood.
If you see her, when you see this video, if you happen to see this video or watch this actual YouTube video, you're going to see that her face is well within the structure of her body type. Her body mass is actually very in line with where her body type meets, but at the same time, she is still a relatively large young lady. Again, there's a difference. Before anybody comes for me on this internet, I want to make sure you understand there's a difference between being large and being fat. Large is okay. Obese or fat is not. And when I say is not okay, I am not saying that obese people shouldn't be walking around. That is not the message I'm trying to give. I'm talking about from a health perspective, obesity is not okay. What an obese person looks like is their business. Now, as long as they're obviously properly dressed, and when I say properly dressed, they are clothed, and it is appropriate for the setting that they are in. As long as those two things are being met, which is a universal statement, there's nothing to critique about an obese person and their appearance. Are we clear on that? I'm going to repeat myself. As long as they're dressed appropriate for the setting and that they are properly and the dressing is appropriate, period, universally, there should be no issue with what an obese person wears out in public, because it is not for you. As long as they are stylish within the style of dress that they wish to be and they wish to represent themselves, and as long as the style of dress again is appropriate for the setting, they have every right to wear what they want to wear. All right, but I digress. So I'm gonna continue.
I did like every single sport ever when I was little, and I exercised all the time, but I still would never lose. Like, I would lose weight, and the next thing you know, I would just gain it all back. My heaviest was about 285. Like, I could eat 4 plates per meal if I could.
Kids in school, Maggie has started to comment on the clothes she wore.
Now, again, let me go back just a little bit because I want to repeat that again.
$285. Like, I could eat 4 plates per meal if I could.
She was 285 pounds. Again, I want to make sure y'all understand the correlation I'm trying to make here. While your gravitational numerical value, also known as your weight, does not represent whether or not you are obese. There's a certain criteria that you start aligning in your head that literally crosses the threshold where you can start to relatively assume that someone is actually obese. All right. Now, you can tell, and she says she used to eat 4 plates. Why are you allowing somebody to eat 4 plates of food? Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a statistic, or I should say a little bit of information in regards to that, right? When you are gaining weight, there is a way to eat all that will satisfy you without putting yourself in a situation where you're prime for disaster. All right. And it's simple. Eat the level of food that was appropriate for you to eat. So let's say you went to McDonald's, right? Not that I am pro fast food. But let's say you go to McDonald's and you have an appropriate hamburger and an appropriate level of French fries. You don't go back and keep ordering. I'm not saying that this is what this young lady did, but eating 4 plates of food, I'm going to give the description of 4 plates of McDonald's food. You don't go back and order another sandwich and another order side of fries. What you do now is you go home and you ingest as much vegetables and fruit that will satisfy you along with the McDonald's you ate. So that way the amount of caloric intake is minimized, because eating vegetables, it takes a lot of vegetables for it to make a caloric significance to your diet. Fruit is a little different, but just to get the palate change of eating vegetables and tolerating the palate change, I would suggest I would probably say 3-to-1 vegetables to fruit. So that way you can feel full and still feel satisfied with the flavor of fruit in your mouth. Does that make sense? While you still ate what everybody else ate. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling up something for you guys to consume when I share my screen with you. Okay, so let's get back to work so we guys can understand exactly what's going on here.
School, Maggie says, started to comment on the clothes she wore.
In 6th or 7th grade, I wore one of my dad's t-shirts, and it was way too big. But, I didn't care. It was comfy. I was comfy. They're making fun of me. They're like, oh, Maggie's wearing her dad's t-shirt.
Now, I'm going to give you a description of the family at large. This family is a relatively large family. I could clearly see that dad and son are over 6 feet. Mom, who's standing next to dad, is, I would probably say, about 5'7", 5'8". And based on this particular picture, and I'm assuming that they were much younger at that time. She was a bit younger at the time. She wasn't 16. I'd probably say she was maybe about 12, 13 maybe. She's approximately at that time maybe about 5'7", 5'6", 5'7". All right, for a girl that's tall. All right, and as a result, she looks like she can fit her dad's clothes. Her dad is not small. Mom is not small, but neither of them are excessive in obesity. In her case, she was. She's running around at roughly about 280 something. She's excessively obese. And her brother looked like he was relatively lean, but he wasn't chiseled, if that makes sense. All right. And again, they're all still large people naturally. They're not tiny people. So people passing judgment on her wearing her dad's clothes, again, she's appropriately dressed. Why are you saying something? How dare you talk about what she looks like, what she's wearing?
Can't fit in her own clothes.
I think that's the first time that she really got her feelings hurt and didn't know how to come back.
Her mom, Erica, desperate to help her daughter lose weight.
I had a healthcare professional at one point tell me that she would be 500 pounds by the time she was 16 and that she would die.
Maggie had bariatric surgery, which she says didn't stop the compulsions to eat more than she wanted to. So her doctors turned to a medicine called Victoza.
When Maggie started taking the GLP-1 medications, she was one of the youngest people
to have ever taken them. And it was the Victoza that quieted that part of her brain and allowed her to eat what she needed to with the surgery and to lose weight.
Becoming something of a miracle tool for so many, GLP-1 agonist medications were originally meant to treat type 2 diabetes. Now, many using them for weight loss.
When we have discussions about helping people manage their weight, often I think a lot of bias comes into that, which makes it difficult for people to understand that obesity in and of itself is a chronic, complex condition.
As millions of Americans turn to these drugs, experts say medications like Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy, Zepbound could put a dent in America's obesity epidemic.
Nearly 1 in 3 Americans within this country are overweight, and close to 40% are qualified as obese. Obesity.
Now, I would like to push back on the numerical statistics about obesity because, as you well know, if you've watched my channel at all, first of all, do me a favor and put a 1 in the chat if you understand that obesity is a disease. It is. I'm not going to belabor that point. But what I am going to push back on is the numerical data stating that 40% of the United States of America, if not, I'd say I'll just leave it at the United States of America, is obese. Now, the reason why I'm pushing back is because we all know that everybody goes by BMI. And BMI is not a fair, complete indicator of obesity. It is one of the tools that we use to determine if somebody is obese. But in this country, we use it as the end-all be-all, and that is not fair because there is muscle mass. And if we do not attribute muscle mass to the measuring stick, then we're not being fair to anybody else, and we cannot definitively call them obese. What I like to say is that if your BMI is high and your body fat percentage is high, there's a high chance you are obese. Okay? You might want to argue with me, but I am 99.999% sure that if you tell me that your BMI is over 27 and your body fat percentage is over 25 for guys and over 35 for women, you are more than likely obese. Okay? And obesity is not healthy. I digress.
Connected to many different factors, not just on what we eat, but on our environment, our medications that we use, certain hormonal conditions that we may have.
So what we're talking about is food, environment, meaning what you're surrounded by, and hormonal differences in each individual. So all three of these factors have to be weighed in order to determine whether or not is there a overlying problem as far as a disease is concerned, or is it actually decisions being made to in fact do what we're doing. So I'll give you an example. Somebody who likes to eat cheeseburgers daily does not mean they have a brain issue that's causing them to want to eat cheeseburgers. It may be they're over-consuming cheeseburgers and they need to stop. Just that simple. Or they need to incorporate a higher level of activity along with their desire for fast food when they choose to eat fast food, if that's what they choose to do then. Versus a hormonal imbalance that is causing your body to not properly assert that you're satisfied, or to properly assert that your blood sugar is high and it needs to be reabsorbed. Insulin is a hormone. Glucagon is a hormone. All right. So as a result of that, those hormones may not be functioning properly. Therefore, it may be necessary for you to, in fact, need an assistance at that point. But if you're just stuffing your face with cookies, cake, and ice cream and fast food and junk, and because you like the taste of it, then that's a personal decision, as opposed to I ate food that's relatively healthy or should be relatively healthy, but I can't stop eating it because my body is telling me I'm not full yet. When in truth, you probably were 2 plates ago.
Education helps to provide that equal playing field.
I'm following you.
Moms at home raving about it.
So these are my jeans from when I first started. My goodness, that's crazy.
Hollywood can't get enough of it.
I think it's amazing and I think it's great for them. People hate on it because they want to do it.
And Oprah making it her mission to keep the conversation going.
There is now a sense of hope, number one. And number two, you no longer blame yourself.
Yeah.
Because when I tell you how many times I have blamed myself.
So, they're showing the 2004 Oprah pictures, and they're showing her pictures throughout the years. But I want to say something about Oprah blaming herself, about you out here in YouTube land, you in social media land, blaming yourself. I am not going to absolve all of you about blaming yourself. Some of you should blame yourself. Some of you have made poor decisions because you wanted to buck the system. You made poor decisions simply because you could, and nobody could stop you. And as a middle finger to the faces of the people who are making criticisms of you, you chose to go the other way. And now you're paying for it, and now you want to fix it. As opposed to what Oprah's talking about, where she is conscious of how she looks. She is conscious on how she's feeling. She is conscious about how healthy and not healthy she actually is, and wanting to make a change about it. And every time she tried to make a change, she made the wrong change. So I'm going to go back to the liquid diet portion. When Oprah went on that liquid diet, she essentially starved herself. And as we now know in many studies, we now know that starving yourself actually makes weight loss harder for several reasons. One, protein wasting happens. And when you protein waste, you're wasting your muscle. And when you waste your muscle, you're wasting your metabolism. Also, you are causing your body to hormonally react in such a way where when you do introduce actual food back, like Oprah said, the minute that show is over and she ate something, I'm sure she went back and ate something normal. I'm sure she didn't go tearing down the house, which is a myth when it comes to obese people. Not every obese person goes in on their food. They're not eating a whole cake to themselves in one sitting. Not every obese person is eating 2 footlongs and washing it down with a liter of soda. Not every obese person is sitting there snacking on Snickers bars until they can't see straight. But that is an assumption people make when they see somebody that's obese, as if they have no self-control. And I'm sure Oprah Winfrey had self-control. But the problem is that Oprah body was also craving certain things at that time. And we could also attribute that to gut health. And gut health actually has been proven that the microbiomes that live in your intestine actually do send signals to control the brain. But I digress. Let's continue.
After decades, her fluctuating size the subject of relentless tabloid scrutiny. From being a spokesperson for Weight Watchers,
I love bread.
That statement alone. She loves bread. She likes the taste of it. Who doesn't love the smell of bread? And when I say she likes bread, I'm not making it sound like, because she's obese, she likes bread. Who doesn't like the smell of bread? Freshly baked bread. Who doesn't like it? I know I do. I know I love the smell of it. I love the taste of bread. But the difference is there's a part of me that lets me know that I've had enough. Sometimes it's how I feel. Sometimes it's not the fact that I'm sitting there eating the bread. Sometimes it's after the fact. Like when I get up out of the chair and I start feeling that my clothes are fitting a little tighter than they should, or than I want them to, or that I'm uncomfortable when I get up, when my knees bend into my clothes, that they feel a little uncomfortable. And I'm not talking about the clothes feel uncomfortable. I'm talking about in my own body, I feel uncomfortable. Okay? I want you guys to understand that. So when she says she loves bread, this is the Weight Watchers commercial. She's on the obese side when she's saying all of this. And in all fairness to her, who doesn't like bread? It shouldn't be a shame to like bread.
Revealing last December that she was using a weight loss drug. For many users of the medications with a new body comes an entirely new outlook on life.
I have been struggling with my weight for as long as I can possibly remember. I mean, I remember feeling like my relationship with food was different than for a lot of people.
Okay, this woman that is talking now, if you ever go back to watch this video, she is sitting front and center in a gray and white shirt camisole combo, and she's surrounded by friends of all shapes and sizes, but she's clearly the largest one of the 3, 6, 7 of them. All right, and when she's talking, she's now wearing a green outfit, and she looks well. She doesn't look starving. She doesn't look like she's unhealthy in the negative sense, or she doesn't look unhealthy in the sense of she doesn't look too thin. She looks like she's in the body that she was meant to be in. Let's see.
Starting at the age of 5 years old, 10 years old.
For Amy Kane, navigating her weight loss has been a lifelong problem. The full-time mom grappling with the constant shame and anxiety she felt over her appearance.
I would say my highest number was probably around 300 pounds. I didn't look at myself in the mirror very often. I didn't step on the scale because I didn't want to know. I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, around 13 years old. And the one thing we know about diseases like that is that it's very, very challenging to lose weight. I think I got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to be able to lose weight. So I said, screw it. I gave up. I then was diagnosed with diabetes.
Amy says that was her breaking point. She completely overhauled her diet and lifestyle, losing about 60 pounds on her own. But after reaching a plateau in the weight loss, an endocrinologist suggested she try Mounjaro.
This medication has saved my life. And I don't just mean physically, but emotionally in a lot of ways. I think the reason this medication was so effective for me is because I committed to completely overhauling my lifestyle and my diet and working on my mental health. It felt impossible for me to do this before. This medication allowed it to feel possible.
Today.
So my thing is, while I do understand the science, I know what you're going to ask. Why is this drug all of a sudden inspiring you to make changes in your lifestyle when you could have made those changes in your lifestyle already? But as you all already heard, she said she did make those changes when she found out she's a diabetic. She made those changes. She lost 60 pounds on her own. Now, here's the thing that I will also challenge. How did she lose the weight? Was it all diet? Was it mainly cardio? Did she even really needed to lose all of the weight? Like I said, she doesn't look bad as she is. Could she have possibly went the muscle building route? I ain't saying bodybuilding, but particularly build some muscle mass up, and maybe not only will your diabetic status possibly change, but it also might have improved your appearance without sacrificing your body type, so to speak. Does that make sense?
After losing more than 160 pounds in all, Amy says she feels like an entirely different person.
Now, she lost 160 pounds, which means after taking the GLP-1 medication, she lost an additional 100 pounds. Okay? Did she need to? I don't know. I don't. I honestly don't. But is she healthier for it? Probably, more than likely.
My life has done a 180. I was a mom that struggled with postpartum depression and anxiety really, really bad. And I somehow, over this past year, have sort of turned my life around. Yes, the medication helped, but I also put in a lot of work, like a lot of work to have a better relationship with my kids, to have a better relationship with my husband, to have a better relationship with myself.
Now she's hoping to pass along her experience to her more than 50,000 followers on TikTok.
While I don't love the situation, I'm actually really proud of the hard work I put in.
So what she's showing is the loose skin that she now has as a result of losing all of this weight. Again, this should not be a shaming moment. You have done the hard work now, and now you're going to need cosmetic surgery to fix what was broken. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, especially in those situations. You know, I go off about the BBLs all the time, and I'm not a fan of it. I'm definitely not a fan of BBLs. However, what I will say is that having a BBL or having a plastic surgery as a result of extreme weight loss, extreme needed weight loss, I think is just fine. It is not a psychological issue in terms of, it's not a psychological issue in terms of you don't like what you see in the mirror, in the sense of you're in a pseudo eating disorder situation, okay? Or a pseudo psychosis situation. You clearly know that your body is not supposed to look like that. So you want to fix the imperfections and make it look as good as it should look within the confines of your body type. Notice what I said. Look good within the confines of your body type. Not look good for the eyes of whomever that deems you worthy or not. That's not the point. It means if your body type is curvy and that's what it is, and you get surgery to fit your curves, let it be that. If you're not curvy, let it be that too. But what we don't want to do is start trying to recreate the wheel that wasn't there in the first place. Okay? So the picture also that in the video right here, that before I click the picture, I want click the video. Why do you share when people give you a hard time about it? I'll tell you why. Because it's none of your damn business to be giving somebody a hard time about her life. She's trying to share it with people who are struggling the same struggle she struggled, so that they don't feel alone, so that they don't feel like there's nobody in the world that understands what they're going through, so that they understand that it is all possible if they give it their all and know that if their struggle is different, that there's other avenues, there's other pathways that will assist in that struggle, as opposed to merely taking the easy way out. And when I say taking the easy way out, I'm not suggesting that anyone that simply takes a GLP-1 is taking the easy way out. What I'm saying is that if you are taking a GLP-1 and you have all the available resources, and you've just been undisciplined in your journey simply because you want to, not because you are incapable of, then that is you using GLP-1s as a crutch, as opposed to using it because you have a broken whatever. So if you have a broken foot, does that mean you shouldn't walk with a crutch? No. But when we use the terminology crutch, we're talking about people who are fully able-bodied, fully capable, and fully functional, and choose to cheat the system and use a GLP-1 or any weight loss drug or any weight loss technique that is not necessarily meant for them.
Gives people an intimate look into her journey.
I have people who are 16 years old that follow me and people who are 75 years old that follow me, but that we all have this common connection. And so I just provide some insight. And I think that It just provides a connection for someone to feel less alone.
So somebody commented, "Oh goody, we're trying to popularize weight loss by pills again." That's not what's happening. I want to clarify that stigma myself. Okay? You are not if you have changed your lifestyle, you have exercised regularly, diligently, with extreme effort and gusto to the best of your ability, and you notice that it is not working for you, then this is where a weight loss medication might be helpful, where a GLP-1 might be helpful, especially if your body fat percentage is in excess to the point where obesity is causing you health issues. That is when you should be doing it. She's not popularizing it. What she's trying to tell you is that some people need help, and those that do need the help should seek the help.
In this crazy journey.
I'm not a fan of gastric bypass, by the way. That's a whole different scenario.
Tigers, let's get down.
Feeling less alone, a concept echoed by many.
Around.
At age 16, Maggie Irvy says after losing about 108 pounds in all, she feels seen for the first time ever.
108 pounds. So that means she's approximately 170 some odd pounds. Because if her highest was 285 and she lost 108 pounds, she's about 177, right? Which I'm going to point out, none of the ladies in this video that is in this video with her, this is the other young lady, the 16-year-old young lady that was in the video featured earlier. None of the young ladies in this video would I consider fat or obese, including the young lady in the video who now weighs 177. Okay? What I will say is they're all similar body types. They're large in the legs, wide in the hips, and they're relatively medium-sized in the upper body. That's okay. That's your body type. And if you remain fit and healthy, being in that body type should be more than okay for you to exist in. For her, it was meant for her to be somewhat smaller. So I just want you guys to understand that.
Before, I feel like no one really noticed me as me, and now that I've lost weight and that I'm in high school with more people, and they notice me for my personality more than just what I look like, because they just recognize me as the fat girl that used to go to Catholic school, I feel like.
Maggie's mom saying she's seeing Maggie's physical health dramatically change.
Normal blood levels, non-fatty liver, not pre-diabetic, is going to live a long and healthy life.
But Maggie's social...
So that is why weight loss is necessary at times. Okay? When you have a fatty liver, when you are pre-diabetic, when you have high blood pressure, when you have knee pains, ankle pains, foot pains, back pains, neck pains, because you're carrying around too much body mass in relation to your muscle mass. Because that's the correlation. It's not just, oh, you weigh 285. No, it's not because she weighs 285. It's because she weighs 285 pounds and her body fat percentage is in excess of 35%. That's the thing.
Is also changing for the better. She's often busy hanging out with friends, something that she felt was unimaginable.
I want to point out she's eating pizza. So the myth of, oh, you know, you eating certain foods makes you fat. No, it's not eating certain foods makes you fat. It is eating certain foods in excess in correlation to your baseline metabolic levels is when you start getting yourself into trouble. For instance, my baseline metabolic level is 1,700 calories. If I eat in excess of 1,700 calories on a day that I'm not active, I'm going to gain weight. End of story. If I do exercise and I eat in excess, mild excess of my baseline metabolic rate, guess what? I'm still going to lose weight. Or if I eat in excess of both my baseline metabolic rate and my active metabolic rate, I'm going to gain weight. Does that make sense?
Before.
I've gone so far and I've done so much more. I've joined the cheer team and I wouldn't have done that before. I've been so successful, I feel like, since then.
You know, Maggie has a best friend. She has a large group of girls that she can run around with. She feels confident. Socially, she's doing very, very well. And that makes me happy for her.
For Maggie and Erica, for Amy, and even for Oprah, losing weight meant gaining a new perspective on life.
I think that for so long, the message was get some willpower, just go to the gym, eat less.
Okay, here we go. So I'm going to read some of these comments that were left behind, okay? Stop being lazy and work out. How do you know they don't work out? How do you know they don't work out? If you noticed, I've given you multiple variations on how somebody can become obese. But I never made the assumption that somebody's just simply being lazy and not working out. It can be, but you can't assume that. It could be hormonal. It could be medication interactions. It could be poor diet, poor activity, poor diet and activity. It could be any of those things.
Willpower.
Yeah, and this is why people like my mother, who actually need it for her diabetes or having issues, getting a hold of it. Actually, no. No. If you are in danger of, there's a difference. Let me explain something to you. The video that I did on the Oscar video is way different than these women that were featured in this video. Number one of the women was a diabetic. The other young lady was in extreme danger of becoming a diabetic. Okay? Oprah probably is a diabetic. This is where, if you're using it to merely lose 5 to 10, 15 pounds in the next 6 weeks because you got a movie role coming up, no. This is where that comment has validity. But because somebody is 60, 70, 80, 108, 200 pounds overweight and then some, is taking this medication even though they're not a diabetic yet, does not mean that they are abusing the medication.
Just go to the gym.
Let me see. Let me go back just a tad.
Just go to.
I have PCOS and lost weight by strength training and perseverance. Yes, you could do that. If you don't have the same issues. Not everybody is going to have the same issues. As a matter of fact, you're going to hear Oprah mention that obesity is a spectrum. And as a matter of fact, I'm willing to start calling it obesity spectrum disorder. OSD, if you will. As a matter of fact, I will call it that. The obesity spectrum disorder is no different than an autistic spectrum disorder. If you, since I am a special education teacher, I deal with kids from a range of autism where they're not functional to fully functional autism. Have conversations, meaning conversations, but they have mild quirks where they perseverate on things. Perseverate means where you focus in on one thing and constantly go into this hamster wheel. But when you break the hamster wheel for the moment, they stop and they're completely fine. They function like everybody else. They just keep going on this hamster wheel every now and then, especially if it offends the senses. Whereas you have people who are in the autistic spectrum who can't function without adult supervision, or who cannot function without adult interaction. All right? That's a spectrum. Some people just don't understand jokes. Some people don't take sarcasm or understand it. That's a spectrum of autism. So you could have a spectrum of obesity to where you just eat a lot. Not because your brain is telling you to keep eating, but because you eat a lot. There's other people who their brains tell them they're still hungry. There's other people where no matter what they do, no matter how hard they exercise on their own, their body tends to store it as fat. There's some people who are skinny fat. Obesity is a spectrum. Okay? Step 2, get off processed meats and chips. Okay, that's fair. Let's start with that. Let's start with the little things and let's figure out where we are going wrong. And maybe we're not going wrong anywhere. Maybe we are eating normally. Maybe we are exercising. But maybe we need a little bit more help to get this particular weight off. Just convinced a bunch of folks on GLP-1 want the ability to eat like with the blank girlies with crazy self-control.
Why can't you just lose weight? This is a disease for a lot of people. And that it's not just, lack of strength. These medications are helping people with chronic diseases like obesity to get better, to feel better, to be able to live a better life. So I think this is a huge, huge turning point.
A turning point, but also a reminder that your weight is not your worth.
For people who feel happy and healthy and celebrating life in a bigger body and don't want the medications, I say, bless you. And for all the people who believe diet and exercise is the best and only way to lose excess weight, bless you too, if that works for you. And for the people who think that this could be the relief and support and freedom, as you said earlier, that you've been looking for your whole life, bless you, because there is space for all points of view.
And I agree with her. I believe all of those people have a right to exist without shame. You don't shame somebody into being healthier. You encourage them and you inspire them to want to be healthier. Shaming and guilt and insults and the need to be right, which is also known as sign language, coined by the late Kevin Samuels, also works here. Shame, insult, guilt. need to be right. You need to be right so much. So let's start with the shame part in this setting. You want to shame somebody into conforming to your standard, right? Now, I know some of y'all are going to try to say, well, wait, Mr. Samuels was doing that too. No, he wasn't. What he was doing was pointing out the disproportionate imbalance of how people are judging other people in just as unfair terms in a different realm. So, for instance, you are not skinny and thin and whatever, which is what you think people value, but you are shaming men for not making a certain amount of money. Do you see the correlation? So if you feel the need to shame somebody about what kind of money they make, then you shouldn't, you better be perfect in every sense of the word if you're going to go out of your way to make somebody else feel bad for not having what you want them to have, because he's pointing out that you don't have what they want. Okay? So I don't want people to sit here and think that it was the phrase or the acronym sign was a one-way street. Shaming somebody because of how they look is not cool. Now, of course, what we're talking about is there is levels of shame that should be appropriate. Like I said, if you are dressed inappropriately in the setting that you are in, you're walking around in a thong and you're not on a beach, but you're in a office meeting. You're not going to go into an office meeting in a thong. You're not going to go to a business proposition of the legal kind in a thong. That's not acceptable dress in those locations. If you are a beachgoer, a S worker, then the thong is more than appropriate. Nobody should be shaming you about wearing it. Okay? This is what I'm getting at. And in this spectrum, insult. You don't have the right to insult somebody because they don't look like the way you want them to look. Guilt. They should not have to feel guilty for looking a certain way. You can feel guilty for not being healthy and being around for your friends and your family. That could be a guilt, but you don't have the right to make them feel guilty. You have the right to feel guilty, but I don't have the right to make you feel guilty. And the need to be right. So because diet and exercise is, in my opinion, more fulfilling in your weight loss and fitness journey, does not mean that that's the only route to take. Now, like I said, bariatric surgery, the only reason why I don't agree with bariatric surgery is because if you do not change your lifestyle after having the surgery, all you will be doing is going right back to where you started in the first place, minus $50,000 plus. You would be losing money. You'd be spending money on something, and then on top of that, causing yourself not to, you'll have a mild level of success, but you will not be as successful overall as you would be if you just merely changed your lifestyle. And if you needed medication to fix your brain, then that would be a different story. But changing the design of your body physically is where I kind of draw the line. But I won't shame you for it. It's just not what I would recommend anybody to do. Unless you are literally going to die if you don't stop, if you don't do something right now.
Are things to...
Okay, so that's part one of this video. And I am going to share one more video, and I am not going to talk more over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this first part.
Which is better for attracting more money in abundance, the law of attraction or manifestation?
I don't like that either, so let's skip all that.
You all have been seeing the headlines, and it's blowing up your social media feeds. The new weight loss drugs, everybody's talking about Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. Will they change the game on the health battle hundreds of millions are fighting every day? More than 2 billion adults, 2 billion adults, that's 1/4 of the world's population, are overweight or obese. And it's estimated that by 2035, that number is going to reach more than half the world. Today, in most countries, y'all.
That's 11 years from now. In 11 years, we're going to double the rate of obesity. Yes, I'm going to blame fast food industries. I'm going to blame food conglomerates for messing with the hormonal balance in your customers because of the products that you use in your foods. I'll blame that. But, because your tentacles are far and reaching, is going to be a lot harder to get people to not eat these foods on a regular basis. I eat ice cream, but I don't eat it every single day. Maybe once a week, maybe even twice a week, but not in such an excess. But anyway, I digress.
Obesity, I didn't know this until preparing for the show. Obesity kills more people than malnutrition.
Facts.
That was a wow for me too. So you all know I've been on this journey for most of my life. My highest weight was 237 pounds.
So Oprah at her heaviest period is 237 pounds. Just so you know. She's letting you know that that's how big she was. And again, 237 pounds does not mean she's obese. But as we all see and know with our eyes, we can see that there's a level of adipose tissue attached to her that exceeds the rate of 35%, which then we can assume safely that she is actually obese.
I don't know if there is another public person whose weight struggle has been exploited as much as mine over the years. So I am ready for this conversation. With me, our top experts, and this audience has some interesting questions and opinions. And I know many of you watching have on your mind as well. So questions like, is being overweight a lack of willpower, or is obesity a medically treatable disease?
It's both.
Are these new drugs a miracle cure, a silver bullet for weight loss? Can anybody take them? Are they safe? That's what we all want to know. So,
and they're relatively safe, but you can develop tumors on your thyroid. I read that last week. You can do that.
Our panel, Dr. Fatima Cody, Stanford. She goes by Dr. Fatima, is an associate professor of medicine and pediatrics at Harvard Medical School and an obesity medicine physician scientist. Works with veterans at the New York Harbor Veterans Affairs. And Seema Sistani is the chief executive officer of Weight Watchers. I've been an investor and on the board of Weight Watchers since 2015. I invited Seema today because
Oprah actually walked away from Weight Watchers because, according to her, she did not want the appearance of impropriety for suggesting all of these things, knowing full well that she has a stake, financial stake in all of this. It's not, she's basically trying to tell you this is not a money grab for her. She's serious about this. I believe her because Oprah has in fact said in the past, before she went off the air originally as the Oprah Winfrey Show, she said there is no magic pill because if there was, I'd own it. I believe her.
I know many people want to know where Weight Watchers stands on this issue. We're going to get to that. So happy to have you all here.
So happy to be here.
Okay, let's start with this. 10 years ago, the American Medical Association declared obesity a chronic disease. Now, a lot of us missed that, but many people can't wrap their brain around what that really means. So, Dr. Fatima, I read that you played a central role in that designation a decade ago. Can you define for us what it means that obesity is a disease?
So, literally 10 years ago, 2014, is when they have realized that obesity is an actual disease. They have been saying it longer than that, but they have now definitively proven that obesity spectrum disorder is a disease.
Absolutely. Why do we call obesity a disease? We call it a disease because there is malfunction in how the body is operating. And there's two primary pathways of the brain that actually regulate weight. One pathway is our anorexigenic pathway. When we hear anorexigenic, what do we hear? We have less food intake and less food storage. Now, we have a different pathway of the brain, and when patients have overweight and obesity, they're typically upregulating the orexigenic pathway of the brain. Orexigenic is the opposite of anorexigenic. That pathway supports storage of adipose. Adipose is a fancy word for fat.
So I'm going to share my screen with you so you see it for yourself. So this is what she's saying. There are two ways that your body regulates weight: anorexigenic and orexigenic. These are words that I am not familiar with. I actually learned about it watching this program. And anorexigenic and orexigenic pathways are, one tells you stop eating and makes you store less body fat. And then the other one makes you want to eat more and store more body fat. Now, remember when I answered the question, is obesity a lack of willpower? And I said it is both a disease and a lack of willpower, because you can will yourself to a certain extent to not overindulge in food despite what your brain is telling you. And you could also give into your mental desires while still not giving up on yourself. That's willpower. However, that's the willpower part. But can it be a disease that is causing you to influence you, to cause you to eat excessively and eat improper foods that will cause you to be hormonally imbalanced and gain weight? Absolutely. Now, the one question I have as a professional is, what are the hormones that affects the anorexigenic pathways and the orexigenic pathways? I'm probably going to look that up in part 2, because I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. I'm going to spend maybe about another 15 more minutes on this. All right.
A lot of vocabulary there.
Yeah.
But that tells us that there is dysfunction in how the body is regulating weight. And it's going on in our brains, and it's influenced by the world around us. Our genetics, development, environment, behavior all play.
Genetics, development, those two things. I'm going to start with those two. Genetics, development, environment, behavior. Genetics, it's how tall your mom is, how tall your dad is, how much muscle mass do they typically carry naturally. That is the genetics part. Development. How did you develop? How did you go about it? Did you exercise with a level of intensity that you increased your muscle mass? Did you avoid exercise in general? Did you, or as to say, weightlifting? Did you focus on cardiovascular training instead? And now you are in this body type, or your muscle mass has been influenced this way. Behavior. How do you behave around food? Are you disciplined about how much you eat and drink? environment. Can you behave in the environment that you're in about the food that surrounds you? But I digress.
Role in our body's dysfunction or dysregulation of our adipose, that organ that is fat.
So what I'm hearing is that it's a brain thing.
Yes.
And this is a question. I remember many years ago on the Oprah show, I don't know, decades ago now, when I was first having this conversation trying to explain to the public why alcoholism was a disease. And many people did not believe that alcoholism was a disease. They just thought people overdrink and that why don't you just put the bottle down?
That's true. That is in fact true. However, what I will say is there are people who are full-blown alcoholics, and then there are people who drink too much. They know they're drinking too much. They don't care at the moment, and it's their behavior as to why they're drinking too much, not their genetics, their development, and their environment. Is their behavior. And if it's simply your behavior, you could stop. And us telling you to stop should relatively work. But if you have a genetic predisposition to this, to where if you ingest alcohol, your brain chemistry changes to the degree where you can't function. As a matter of fact, your brain just starts craving it, and then your brain starts telling you to drink more of it, and then you start drinking more of it, and then it doesn't give the same feeling, and therefore your body craves more of it. It's the same cycle. That is the disease portion. Does that make sense? Just want to let y'all know that.
How is this somehow relatable to that? Because is every person that overdrinks is not an alcoholic. Every person that overeats is not necessarily have obesity as a disease.
Correct.
How do you explain that? Why for some they're just overeaters and some it's a disease because of the brain thing, right?
Absolutely. Well, it's about how much we take in and how much we store. So we all have those friends. My husband is here in the audience. He's this friend of mine who can eat whatever he wants and he doesn't really store that. And you're like, how is that even possible?
As I got older, it's
And then we have those people that look at pizza and they're like, my gosh, I just looked at it and I feel like I stored it.
Yeah. Where are your husbands?
Husband is in the back corner over there.
Yeah, husband has a name. Thank you. Corey. Thank you. Corey can eat apple pie at 11 o'clock.
But now here's the funny thing. Corey, I'm not going to show his picture, but Corey's head is rather on the larger side comparatively to his body. But Corey's physique clearly shows that he takes good care of himself. But there's advantages for both being a male and having a larger level of muscle mass and working within that range. You get to eat what you want sometimes and not really reap the repercussions of it as well. If I get crazy with food now, I can gain 10 pounds in a week if I'm not watching what I'm doing, in all seriousness. However, all I do is change the way I eat, and I'm back down to a lean, mean 150 pounds. Right now, I'm about 154, 155 pounds, but I know I've neglected certain aspects of my workouts, and as a result, it's telling on me, all right? However, change that nature of my workout, add that to the lexicon, and my body fat percentage drops. Therefore, my weight goes back down to what I expected to, and everything is good.
At night.
And he's able to do this. His body defends a very lean set point. He's able to eat what he wants, and his body just defends that lean set point. If I were to do the exact same behaviors, I would store more excess adipose. My body is more predisposed to storing more fat.
Damn.
I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to look into it in part 2. Does estrogen play a bigger role into why body fat is stored Is it easier to store body fat in women than it is in men? Is the better question. Okay?
Sure, mine is.
Yeah.
Is that the word I've been looking for? Adipose.
Yes.
I'm an adipose storer. Okay, all right. So that is a scientific fact.
That's a scientific
that some people's bodies operate differently than others. We can accept that, right?
Yes,
we can see that.
Absolutely.
And for those of us who are adipose storers, no matter how many times, because you all have watched me diet, it's a recurring thing because my body always seems to want to go back to a certain weight.
Okay. So now we got one more video, and I got about a few more minutes, and I'm going to just keep quiet, so let it run.
Between the journey with this GLP-1, Ozempic, GLP-1, right? This GLP-1 versus every other time you tried to lose weight.
I needed the help. I realized I needed the help. I didn't have the help. I didn't have the mindset. So I feel like Ozempic got me in a place where I could turn my life around. I could start eating better. I could monitor it. I wasn't as hungry. I have a personal trainer now, so I'm doing everything because I have to live. This is the act 2 of my life.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because you said, I needed help with the mindset. And I want clarification from the doctors here about the difference between mindset and willpower. Because one of the things that I've been so shamed myself about and was shamed in the tabloids every week about for 25 years is not having the willpower. And I think, that is, there is a distinction between mindset, which we're now hearing the brain tells you a certain thing about how you process food, versus the willpower. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. It's hurt to see you ostracized in the way that you've been. Because this isn't about willpower.
Thank you for saying that.
I have talked about those pathways.
So shamed
right?
every single
and
week.
It's not your fault. In those pathways, you guys may not remember any of the words I said, but did willpower come out of my mouth? Willpower did not, because it's not in the pathways, you guys. It's just not in the science of this disease. This isn't me just making people feel good about it not being a willpower issue. It literally is not part of that regulation, those pathways. Mm-hmm. It's how our bodies regulate weight, and each of us is different. Each of us is unique. Not one is superior to another. We're just different, and acting on those differences and treating the differences in the heterogeneity of the population is how we're going to actually make change in this disease. Not only here in the U.S., this is the #1 prevalent chronic disease in the entire world.
Can I add something about mindset too?
Yeah.
Part of mindset is how are we feeling about ourselves as human beings, and how are we talking to ourselves? And I think this conversation around blame and shame, when we eat too much, if you're beating yourself up and saying, oh, I'm a horrible person, that's not going to help. Shaming does not help treat this disease.
Well, we know that, but this is a world that has shamed people for being overweight forever, and all of us who've lived it know that people treat you differently. They just do. And I am Oprah Winfrey, and I know that all that comes with that, but I get treated differently if I'm 200 plus pounds versus under 200 pounds.
And I'm
I just
so
get
sorry
treated
you had
different.
to deal with
When
that.
I walk into a store, it's that thing where people are like, let me show you the gloves. Would you like to look at the handbags? Because we know that there's nothing in here for you. I mean, there is a condescension. There's a
stigma.
A stigma.
Yeah.
There's a stigma. There's a stigma.
So, everything she said there, she didn't, again, take your personal issues with Oprah aside, if you have them. And no, she does not deserve to be treated with such disrespect. Not because she's Oprah Winfrey, but because she's a human being. She doesn't deserve to be treated that way simply because she doesn't look like you. Or, now at the same time, you are aware that she may not be able to fit the clothes that are in the boutique that she may be in at the time, but you don't know who she's in there buying things for. Show her everything. If she knows that she ain't buying nothing in there to fit her, then she'll tell you, let me look at the handbags, let me look at the gloves. But for you to suggest it for her is where you would lose my business personally if I were her. And you don't want to not have Oprah's business if you're in retail, if that makes sense, all right? But I digress. And I am going to land this plane for now. I'm going to take off again probably tomorrow night to close this loop, because I am going to be in New York beginning on Friday. And for my Monrovians, my fellow Monrovians, alumni of James Monroe High School in the Bronx, our beloved Mr. Porton is in need of your help. And I am asking that you guys go to his GoFundMe page and give what you can. Right now, last I saw, it was at $1,905. Hopefully it is increased a little by then. But with all the people that he has touched in the 40 plus years in education, with all the successes of students that he has had, you cannot possibly tell me that you can't donate some money to the cause of helping Mr. Porton help people, as he always has, in the rehab facility that he is now in, to lift the spirits and grow the minds of the people that reside in the building with him. He deserves your help because he has given so much of himself to help you be the best version of yourself. I think it is only fair that we do the same. I know I am. Hopefully, you guys will be there with me at that time when I do show up. But outside of that, I want you guys to understand that obesity is not necessarily your fault. It is the difference between the spectrum of knowing that you have a choice, and if you know that there is no choice because you know that your brain is not functioning well, then you know that there's answers to assist you on that journey. So I'm going to sign off now. So guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Have a nice day. Be the best you. Class of Stoutt.